Okay, so we've just gone past the hour, so I'll make a start on today's webinar. Firstly, thank you to everybody for your time today. Hopefully the information you'll see over the next 30 minutes will be useful to you. The topic of today's webinar is leveraging CAD and PLM assets utilizing the 3D PDF format. Today's webinar is a joint webinar between Theorem and Kaizen. I'll explain a little bit more about Theorem and Kaizen at the start of the webinar before moving on to product discussion and demonstration. Just a little bit of information about myself. My name is Neil Wharton and I'm Theorem Solutions Channel Manager. You'll be hearing my voice on today's webinar. However, at the end, you'll also have contact details for myself and Anthony from Kaizen. And I'll set the scene on how to engage with us. If there is anything on this webinar that's of interest or you need further information, I'll provide that afterwards. At the end of the webinar, there'll also be a section for questions. So if anybody has any questions during this, then please feel free to send them through one of three ways. Firstly, send them via the Q&A section. So you can send them via the Q&A section of the webinar. Alternatively, Catherine Edmonds has facilitated this webinar, so if you send them to Catherine, I'll be able to see them, or send them directly to myself. There are a few questions that I've been asked previously to this webinar that I'd like to cover at the end because people have asked me to cover them. So there are three questions that people have asked me to mention at the end. So I will discuss those three questions to start with. And then if there's time, I'll address the questions live. If not, please still send them through because I will contact each person individually to provide an answer to your questions. So please do send them through. And if I don't get around to them on this webinar because it is a 30-minute hard finish, I will contact you individually to provide answers to them. So very briefly, who are Theorem Solutions and who is Kaizen? Theorem Solutions, we've been around since '91. We've got a head office in the UK, which is where our products are created, designed, developed, and sold to UK, Europe, and Asian Pacific, often through partners. And we've got an office in America, in Detroit. Our products fall into three categories: translate, publish, and visualize. And I will mention those in a little bit more detail in a moment, focusing predominantly on publish, which is the purpose for today's webinar. It's important to note that all of our products are developed in partnership with vendors. So we use their APIs and libraries. You'll see a lot of mention today of NX and JT. We utilize the Siemens APIs and libraries for NX and the JT Open libraries. And therefore, our products are developed by Theorem, but supported by Theorem and the CAD vendors themselves. You'll see a lot of discussion about direct translation today, but it's important to mention also the last point, which is we do support standards, ISO standards such as STEP, JT, and 3D PDF, with 3D PDF being the predominant discussion today. Kaizen PLM are a gold partner of Theorem Solutions. They're also a gold partner of Siemens Digital Industry Software. Really, from Theorem's side, that means that Kaizen can sell our entire portfolio. So Kaizen are our partner for Ireland and can sell Theorem software throughout Ireland. Kaizen PLM are specialists in additive manufacturing, and they've got experience and they specialize in Teamcenter PLM, as you would expect, being a Siemens partner, Siemens NX for CAD and CAM, SimCenter 3D, virtual commissioning, AR and VR solutions, which I'll touch on in a moment, and also Kaizen PLM specialized in work instruction deployment, which again, I'll mention throughout this webinar and I'll touch on from a 3D PDF context. So Theorem solutions, which we provide and that Kaizen can sell, fall into translate, publish, and visualize. And I'll touch on translate and visualize briefly before focusing on publish, which is the purpose of today's webinar. So translate. Our translate products support the translation of data, predominantly 3D CAD, from one system to another or one format to another. For example, if you were a V5 user and your supply chain were a mixture of NX and JT, you could send and receive your V5 data to an NX user and a JT user. Similarly, if you were an NX user and you had a supply chain that had Creo, for example, then you could consume Creo data in your NX suite using one of our direct translators. It translates assembly structure, geometry, attribute, whether that's user-defined or standard, and where available, product manufacturing information, PMI or FTA or GD&T. They're all very much the same or similar. They basically refer to the annotation and the 2D information applied to the 3D model. The use cases people buy this for from Theorem are around data exchange, so the sending and receiving of data. So you have a supply chain in the example I gave, a number of different CAD formats. You use NX, you use V5, you use Creo, whatever you use, and you want to consume that information inside your NX suite, for example. Data review, so you could use a system for design and a different system for reviewing that data. And we provide translators for the ability to move data from a design system into a high-end visualization system, for example, for review. Model-based definition, so a lot of companies are turning off the 2D drawing use and they want to get model-based definition into their 3D world. We translate model-based definition using translators. And collaboration, so within an organization, you could have a number of teams working on a project, or you could have a number of companies working on a project. And if those companies work in a heterogeneous CAD environment, you can translate data so that you still have a single view of the truth. The next thing to mention is Visualize, and very briefly I'll touch on this. So Visualize is our XR software, so it's getting 3D CAD data and metadata into the worlds of virtual, augmented, and mixed reality. And we do this by offering experiences based on use cases from our customers. The visualization experience is the foundation level. That's for people who design something and they want to be able to see it full scale and interact with it and take bits on and off and maybe take sectioning of it in a full scale environment. Design review on top of that allows you to carry out the function of a design review in this world. So for example, if you have offices dotted around the world, let's say you have an office in America, in Germany, and in China, all of those offices can see exactly the same piece of data at exactly the same time to scale, and they can interact with it. And if one person rotates it, everybody sees it rotating in real time. They can communicate via their headsets, and that's across platform. So somebody might be using a virtual reality, somebody mixed reality, and somebody a desktop application, and they could all see the same data at the same time for a design review. Product layout experience, if you wanted to interact and interrogate your product that you have designed at a full scale while looking at associated data such as metadata that you could be bringing in from PLM or PDM. Factory layout experience to support the development of a factory line. Before you create it physically, you could create it digitally, and you know of any issues digitally which are free or low cost to change, whereas if you made the factory and spotted an error, it would be very expensive and time consuming to change. Equally, if you're changing a factory layout, you could do it digitally rather than physically and then spot errors afterwards. Guides, so that's work instructions or training in the virtual environment. So you could create training for your engineers in virtual reality. And obviously the benefits there are time and cost, also safety, and they can do the task over and over again without utilizing any resources. The final one to mention is 3D overlay. So that's snapping on 3D geometry to a physical component. So looking at the digital over the physical. So they are the two product brands that I'm not going to cover any more than that today. The one that I'll focus on today is what we call Publish or Publish 3D. And Publish 3D is around 3D PDF. So it's getting your data into a 3D PDF world. So Publish 3D enables you to create PDFs from CAD, whether that's NX, V5, V6 Creo, or from JT. You can get the data into a 3D PDF file. What we mean by that is you can get all of the metadata into table information or into textual information, but you can also get a 3D view of your data. And this is into a free Adobe Reader, and it is just the .pdf format. So any of you now could receive a 3D PDF and fully interrogate it with the free Adobe Reader you already have installed. You can mark up the data, again, with the free reader. You can interrogate, you can create specific uses for it, such as bill of material, and have a dynamic parts list. You can create RFQs. And what we'll focus on for today's webinar is the creation of work instructions for assembly purposes. The power of PDF really lies around its ability to have templates. So you will see in a moment when I show a few videos on what I mean by this, that the 3D element's very powerful. You can interact with it, you can do what you'd like with it, you can interrogate it with the free viewer. But really it comes alive when you wrap it in a template that's useful. So if you look at the bottom there on the right hand side, you've got bill of materials. That can be a dynamics table where you collect a part name in the table and it rotates and shows you the object in CAD, or vice versa. You click the part in the window that shows you the geometry and it shows you where in the table that is. On the left hand side we have work instructions, which I'll go on to show you in a moment's time. What Theorem do and what Kaizen sell in this world is the ability to get your CAD and PLM assets into the 3D PDF. So we take your CAD or your JT from a visualization format, we put it into 3D PDF. What I want to show you now is I'll start with showing you standard 3D PDF for those of you who aren't familiar with 3D PDF as a format. I'll then show you a number of things you can do with PDF before showing you how you can create work instructions is my focus for today. And then I'll show you how you can get your data from CAD into the PDF format. There's a lot to show, so hopefully we'll be able to fit that in the time allocated. But as I mentioned earlier, I will be able to answer any questions that anybody has after this point. So hopefully you can see the video that I'm playing now. Apologies if there's any lag. You will receive a recording of this. So if there is a lag, you can watch this at a later date. But what we're showing is a very standard Theorem template. This is just a standard template. This is a Adobe Reader, so it's the free view version. And we show you what you can do. So you've got a description which you could edit. You've got comments which you could edit. You can lock these fields down or you can leave them editable. But you've also got this 3D data. And we've chosen for it to come through as illustrated mode by translation on this occasion. But maybe we want it to look a bit more like CAD. So we make it look a bit more like you'd expect in your CAD system. And that's got the full model tree. So you can see here it's got the full assembly structure. And you can do with it what you would expect to be able to do with it in CAD. So you can select an element and toggle that on and off. And again, this is all in the free viewer. You've got your property information as well. So you can tell any properties that were maintained in the CAD system or the JT file come through as well. Within the free viewer, you also get a toolbar. So this is just standard Adobe function, and that allows you to interact with this 3D data as well. You can pan, you can rotate, you can do various things that you would expect to be able to do if you were using a visualization system for interrogation. You can make 3D measurements, for example. You can add comments. So we're just going to add a comment here. And as you can see, we're just going to ask somebody to look at this specific element. And you can see on the left-hand side, a 3D comment has appeared. Now, if we rotate this, if we change the background color, if we change the display mode to transparent, we still see this 3D comment on the bottom left and on the left-hand side of the screen. So when we send it to somebody externally, if they click that comment, it returns the data and the view to exactly as we made it. You can section it. So you can do sectioning, and you can have the ability to change the cross-sectioning and change the offset of that. And again, this is all in the free Adobe Reader that you have access to today. And this is a very simple template that we're showing. And in a moment's time, we'll show a slightly more complex template and how you can start to use this in your own environment and in your working practices. One of the most powerful things is that it can contain attachments of its own. So you can see there we have 4 attachments, but that's still within this .pdf file. So it is a .pdf file containing 4 attachments. There's an Excel spreadsheet. By clicking that, it will open it in its native format. We'll open a JPEG here to show the drawing open. And what PDF does, it compresses and protects these files the same way as it does its own content. So it makes the file smaller. It acts like a zip file or a RAR file. But also, if you add a password, those attachments are protected within that password again. So we're going to move on to a slightly more complex PDF here. And just show you the ability to use radio bars. So you can use radio buttons to turn bits on and off. So we can have one for structure where you can click it and the structure appears. You can turn the structure off the same way. And you can interact with the model using radio buttons as well. So if you selected an element of the assembly and said turn it on and off, you could do so. So there we've turned PMI on and off. If we select a part of the geometry, we can turn the geometry on and off. So we can hide that and show that. Equally, we can isolate a selected component. So if we wanted to select a component and that's the part we're interested in, by isolating that component, we get rid of the rest. So we're just going to reset it here. So as you can see, with standard Adobe Reader, you can do various things to interrogate the data that you've been sent. One of the most powerful parts of PDF is its size. Being a portable document format, it's incredibly lightweight. It's sort of 1/40th even more than the size of CAD. So it's amazingly lightweight. And that's because of the information you're putting into it and its nature. We've got a carousel at the top, which we're clicking through here. And that's taken through from CAD as captures or views. And we've got the ability to change its display mode. The PDF template you're looking at here has a dynamic parts list on the right, which allows you to select a part and it takes you straight to that part in the view and ghosts out the rest. And it gives you part attribute information if that's included. Because there's quite a few, you can put a search tab on and say search for nut. And there's two parts with nut in it here. If we click them, it takes you directly to those parts in the assembly and shows you the bit that we're interested in. So what I'll show now is, I'll show 3D PDF, but more for a real world scenario. It's more using it for work instructions. What I'm going to show is, to start with, how a user of Adobe Reader, the standard viewer, would receive a work instruction and be able to interact with it and click through the various stages of their work instruction to carry out a task. At the end of this video, I actually jumped to Adobe Pro to show you, if you had an Adobe Pro license, how easy it is to create the next steps of this work instruction. But I'll explain it as we go through so that you'll be able to see when we move from one to the other. Again, I hope this video keeps up. I appreciate there might be some lag, and if there is, you will receive a copy of the recording. So we've got a work instruction template. We've got a 3D PDF, and it's a work instruction template. We've got the same radio buttons you saw previously, and we can look and we can tell it's got 7 steps. So this work instruction has 7 steps. So if we want to start it, we go to step number 1, and that tells us the information we need to know. It rotates the geometry to be how we would like to see it. You can still interact with that geometry at all times, even with the free viewer. You've got a dynamic parts list at the bottom that only tells you about the parts that are in show for this work instruction step. On the right, you've got a description. So you've got instruction manual for alternator. That's the task we're going to be carrying out. We're going to change the alternator fan blade. And you've got related documents. So you can click and the document will appear. And this is all held within one PDF file. So you can see here that we've got a PDF file within the PDF file. And that's related to this specific step. So if we go to step number 2, the geometry changes. We see the part we're interested in. We have some warning signs on this occasion, and the description changes. So it tells us to locate the alternator unit. The part list at the bottom has changed to just give us the parts we're interested in. And as we flick through to number 3, you can see this. So now we're interested in this specific bolt. And the notes are, please click here to see what spanner is required. So we click that and it tells us the spanner is required to remove this pin. So if we keep clicking through, you'll see that it'll give us more information about how to take off the housing, and the related documents update each time, and the view stage changes each time. It tells us to take off the bolts, take off the housing. And as we circle through, you'll notice the geometry changes each time, but at all times, it is able to be interactive with. So you can move that geometry around. So within this PDF file, you have the PDF, you have the geometry, and you also have all of the attachments shown. We stick to number 7, and the number 7 task is reassemble all components. So if you were an Adobe reader, everything we've shown you would be everything you get. You get the ability to interact with it, but you are informed of the steps. By clicking the edit mode, we're now jumping across to if you are an Adobe Pro user. You'll see that as an Adobe Pro user, you have an additional buttons. You're effectively an administrator for this work instruction. So what we're going to do now as Adobe Pro user is create the next task. So within our same work instruction, we can name it. We're going to follow the naming convention and name it 08. We're going to give it a description. Do we want any related files? If so, you can select those files or upload additional files. You can select icons for warnings, so you can add warnings to the next steps. You can confirm those, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to the geometry. So let's just show all the geometry, and we're going to change this so that step 8 is giving you additional information, and this is how a user would see the geometry when they clicked on step 8. So we'll rotate it round to how we would like it to look. We can change its display mode for how we'd like them to see it initially when they go on to step number 8. We can hide elements that we want to hide. And then we can focus a user's attention into the area that we are most interested in. So here you can see that we're going to select specific components within this assembly and change their render mode so that they are more obvious. So this specific shaft is the part we're interested in somebody looking at. And all we're going to do now is move it into display more. We can move them across accesses, or we can actually free move if we'd like to. But for the purposes of number 8, we're just going to move them along the y-axis, and then we're going to repeat the task with these 4 bolts there, and then we're going to move the actual shaft itself up so that everybody can see that's the part we're interested in. So what we've done, we've created a name, we've created a description, we've shown how we want the user to see it, and we can confirm those edits and go back into the mode that a user would see. So now we're back to being, if an Adobe reader received this, we're now back to seeing it how they'd see. So if we go back to step number 7, you can see that now we've got a step 8 in this. So now we've got an additional step, which is step number 8. By clicking step number 8, you can see the warning sign, the description, the related documents, all the parts and the geometry as we created it. So that is how you would be able to create a work instruction from an existing work instruction, but also hopefully it showed you how to read a work instruction that has already been created. So that's utilizing 3D PDF for work instruction purposes and having the ability to share it with everybody and know that they can consume that information for free through using the standard Adobe Reader. What I'm going to move on to now is I spent a lot of time talking about 3D PDF as a format and not how you get information into 3D PDF. So I'm just going to spend the next minute or two just talking about how you actually get data from your design system into the world of PDF in a number of ways. And first I'm going to start with interactively. So we're going to show you now an NX user and how simple it is for them to create a PDF from NX. The PDF they can create can be any template you want. So it could be the work instruction one we just saw, and it would automatically populate that. So we're in NX, we go to export, and using the Theorem software, you'll see 2 exports. Publish 3D Interactive, or Publish 3D Interactive Team Center Loaded. So it'll publish it as it's launched from the Team Center environment if you select the second one. So we're just going to select the top one to say, let's create a PDF file. Gives you some options around target directories. It gives you some options on configuration. So configurations here would be where you would see work instructions if you wanted to start to create the work instruction template. You've got some more options such as add a password or launch in Adobe automatically, but we're going to ignore those for the time being, and we're going to click go. On the right, you'll now see some files appear while we process this information. And we'll get a process complete in NX when we've got two items in the demo output folder, a .pdf that we created and the log file of the translation. We open the .pdf and you can see this is the configuration we selected. We asked it to have PMI included. We asked it to be this assembly. So that's how simple it is to create a PDF or a 3D PDF from inside your CAD application with the Theorem Interactive license. The next thing I'll show is Theorem also have the ability to do it externally from CAD. And what this shows is Theorem's UI. So you could use Theorem's UI to carry out the translation activities externally from CAD. So you've got a number of NX parts in your file browser, and you've got this laid out that you can see translation activity and translation logs. If you look at the top, you've also got other things you can see, such as viewer or product structure, if you wanted to see an example of what you're about to translate. On the right-hand side, you will see any translators you have. So this person has 3D PDF for NX, so you can select the configuration you want to use, select the part or the assembly you want to translate, and drag that over, and that's all you have to do as the user. You'll see on the left, the activity log is updated and one is running, and when it's completed, there you go, you get a green tick to say that's completed. If there are any errors, you'd get a red cross to tell you to look at it further. You can open that in the folder, and you can see that there's a PDF file created for that. So by kicking that off, you can see that that's the PDF file that we've just created. Equally, that showed you on the fly interaction with Theorem's UI. Theorem's UI has a batch capability. It's just a button that you toggle on, and you can select a large number of files to batch and kick them off at a time that suits you. So if you wanted to translate everything overnight, you could set it so that you create a very large batch file and everything translates overnight when you no longer need to use your machine. So you can create batches from Theorem UI. You can also run it from the command line. So you can run our product from the command line, which gives you the ability to link it to external automation tools or PLM. So that's how to create 3D PDFs from, firstly, interactive inside CAD, and it's the same for V5, Creo, V6, NX, JT. You can create this from inside the CAD application, apart from JT, which doesn't have a CAD application. We have a number of different license types to allow you to do that. So the first one you saw, which was Save As from inside CAD, is our interactive product. So our low-cost entry level to the world of 3D PDF is our interactive product. So it gives you, the user, the ability to save the geometry they are working on into a 3D PDF. And it's the first video I showed. It's the ability to save it into the PDF world. The second one is On Demand. On Demand, the license from Theorem includes an interactive license, but it goes a bit further. It gives you the ability to volume publish, so you could create a large number of files, drag them all onto one process, and walk away, and it would go through 50 or 100 and volume publish those. It allows you to work externally from CAD, so simply drag and drop file names onto a directory and allow that directory to continue to run those. Also, what it does offer you is the ability to run it via the command line, which means that you can link it to an external automation tool or PLM. An example of that is if you were a Teamcenter user. In the past, we've worked with a company to utilize 3D PDF utilizing Dispatcher from inside Teamcenter. Dispatcher has the ability to run an external process, provided you can effectively run it programmatically. So Dispatcher can run our software, create the 3D PDF, and save that 3D PDF back into Teamcenter. There may be better ways of doing that inside Teamcenter. That's just the way that I'm aware that we've done it in the past. Equally, we've done some work with the Windchill user to do a very similar thing. So On Demand allows you to work with a utility that can run a process programmatically. The final one to mention, and again, I'll point out that Kaizen can sell all three of these versions of license, is Automated. Automated is a server-based solution, and really it's for your higher volume needs. If you are looking for an enterprise system to do all of your document management and creation, Automated is what you will need. It really is a method of integrating 3D PDF into a business process. And so many companies are looking at 3D PDF and implementing 3D PDF that automated has become very popular. It's a server-based solution, and it is for higher volume requirements. Automated isn't necessarily a out-the-box one-size-fits-all. It is something that takes it takes the requirement of working with the client to understand the exact requirement, because often there will be certain parts of automated that fits a specific user's requirement and not others. So if 3D PDF is interested to you, and if you're looking for a high volume usage, please contact us and we'll discuss automated in a bit more detail and provide you with information about how other companies have used it today. I appreciate I've ran slightly over time here, so I'm going to run through the questions I've got very quickly, and then I'm going to close out the webinar, but I will answer any questions you've sent through to either myself or Catherine or the Q&A section separately, and I'll contact you. So thank you for asking those, and I will be in touch with you on those. The three questions I've got, which I've been asked to cover previously, so I'll focus on those, is firstly, what is the file size of the 3D PDF file relative to the CAD? So file size I mentioned briefly, but I'll just touch on that again. PDF is portable document format, so it's all about file size. It has to be portable, otherwise it doesn't work. So PDF is very, very good at maintaining a lot of information in a very small file, and Theorem have developed that further to offer the user the ability to change the level of detail in the PDF. What that means is, if you want a very, very accurate PDF file, it will be larger, but you could have BREP. You could have exact geometry in your PDF file. I've never seen a use case strong enough to have BREP in a PDF file, because you're not going to manufacture from it, and you're not going to design in context. So I've never seen a use case where you'd need the BREP, but you could have that. It is technically possible to have the BREP in the PDF file. If you're happy with tessellation but still it looks good, then we can get, well, I say easily, our investigations found that we could achieve 1/40th of the size of CAD, but I've seen a lot more than that, in fact. So we have a sample plane assembly that we use in some of our PDF samples, and in CAD I believe it was over 200 megabytes, and in PDF it's 1.4, and that's with attachments. So you can see there that you can often achieve very, very high levels of shrinkage and high utilization of the geometry in a very small file. But it depends on what the user wants in it. So if you're happy with high levels of tessellation or low levels of tessellation, then you can change, and you can play tunes with our software to give you the PDF size that you're looking for, basically. But it is very, very small compared to the CAD, and compared to the JT, it's a very small file with a lot of information in it. Second question I have is, does it link to PLM? I won't cover this in any detail because I mentioned a moment ago that the on-demand software certainly does link to PLM. You could link it to PLM. If you have the PLM expertise, then you could do it yourselves. If not, please talk to Kaizen, or please talk to Theorem, and we have some expertise in there as well that we could assist with you linking it to PLM. The final question I'm going to touch on today, and apologies I've rattled through these quickly because I'm out of time, is around documents right management. So does the software support documents rights management systems if they are previously installed? The answer to that question is yes as well, and I'll just explain what that is for anyone who doesn't use a documents rights management system. If you use PDF today widely in your organization, there are other software you can purchase which can protect that PDF file to a larger degree than you can get as standard. So standard, with our software, you can attach a password to either the whole PDF file or just the geometry. You can put a password on that so that only the people you send it to and give the password can access that. But some companies have a documents rights management software that just things like timestamp. So after a certain time, you can't open the PDF. There's things like linkage, so you can see who receives the PDF and who opens the PDF. And because what we're creating, even with the 3D geometry, is still just a PDF file, yes, it works with the rights management systems that you will have installed today. All it leaves me to do now is to thank everybody for your time. I appreciate that was a lot of information in a short period of time, so apologies for me going through that quickly. Hopefully the network kept up with the videos. If not, you will receive a recording of this that you can watch at your leisure. It will have all of me talking over it and all of the videos shown so you can watch it again. If you have any questions on anything shown today, or if after considering this you come up with questions in the future, please contact myself and or Anthony for more information, or send us the questions and we'd be very happy to have a conversation with you about it. Again, just briefly, it is Theorem's software, but Kaizen have the ability to sell all of Theorem software as they're a gold partner of ours for Ireland. So either one of the names that you see on the screen in front of you is the right contact to get more information on everything you've seen here today. So with that in mind, I will close off the session. I'll say thank you once more to everybody for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.